Well, the day was finally here. The Colorado Pro Day, the icing on the cake, basically of all the workouts. Some individual workouts still lined up. The Browns supposedly will have an individual workout with Shedeur Sanders next week. Let's see what that's really about. I mean, that might be more of something where it's just Browns brass sitting down with Shedeur doing some whiteboard work. But Colorado Pro Day, we got some thoughts. Browns 3D starts now. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound Browns. 3D on the OBR is brought to you by State Sharpening Mower Sales and Service. Your host, Jeff Lloyd. Certainly appreciate everybody, supporting the site here. It's been a big past couple of months here. Coverage that we really haven't been able to do the last few years. Certainly, with the lack of Browns draft capital, the written work you guys are coming out, the nightly streaming you guys are coming out, we are certainly thankful. Make sure you subscribe to the OBR on YouTube and, of course, the OBR over on Twitch. Well, this was it. Today was the day. The long anticipated, the final pro day, the big one, Colorado, Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter. And it didn't disappoint. I mean, it was a packed house. And, I'm just going to start with, look, Deion Sanders is a unit right now in college football. He will get the players. Where does he take Colorado? Does he stay at Colorado? Does something more alluring come by even after the big contract extension just given to Deion to continue his work there? But Deion knows what he is doing. Deion is fantastic. People just flock to him. Certainly knows how to speak and speak well. He's not a fool. I have a feeling one of my boys will be up there in Cleveland. And it's not necessarily, I know everybody, well, Deion wants his guys to go as high as possible. So if one's not an option, Deion wants his boys to go 2 and 3, hopefully, So that's certainly, the thought there. Magnetic. He knows what he's doing, and he's doing such a fantastic job. And when he closed and he spoke, about Travis Hunter and, off the field, likes to do some fishing, likes to play some video games. Shedeur, dabbles in music in his free time. They are good kids. And for my fault here in any of my discussions, look, I'm not trying to, douse anybody or put these guys down. There's a reasoning why you choose one player over another, and so every player's got negatives. You have to list negatives, obviously, and sometimes it's not the most fun thing to do. And I think some people take things a little bit further, and I get guilty of it too. I can be a pain in the butt sometimes too, but that is what it is. Originally, we thought Hunter wasn't going to work out at all. I had told you yesterday I was pretty damn adamant that I had a feeling that Travis Hunter wasn't going to do any testing. My belief is that Travis Hunter just wouldn't test very well. I think in the shuttle, I think in the 3-cone, I think he would be exceptional in those things. How much does he lift? We're not going to get an answer. How high can he jump? How far can he jump? We're not going to get an answer. What is his actual 40? Obviously, we're not going to get an answer. Makes it difficult because, in the way I have always done this now, and I've been an NFL draft fan my entire life. I have been working with evaluating players for the NFL draft somehow, some way since, 2012, 2013, somewhere in that range. So I've been doing this a long time. And for me, what I want players with really good tape. I want players who check out athletically. I want players who have good production. Not having that athletic testing makes it, a little bit more difficult for me to jump in with a player. And I know some people are going to bring this up in relation to Abdul Carter, but Abdul Carter and Penn State, they did all these things last year. They basically do a combine for their college players before they're even in the draft process. Ran a 4.48. had a really good shuttle time, had a 33.5-inch vertical, things of those natures. So I have something to go on in that nature. So this isn't one where I'm just pointing one against the other and I'm trying to critique one player as opposed to critiquing another. Now back with Hunter, some of my concerns certainly are size. I'll tell you right now, just out there in a t-shirt, and this is why one of the things where you like the combine, and me personally, I like the pro day if you're not going to get to see a guy do something at combine. Guys, somehow, some way, when a football uniform is put on them, it can maybe tell some lies about what their body really looks like. I personally thought Travis Hunter was a little bit bigger up top than I anticipated. It looks like decent muscular size in his thighs. He's got chicken legs. That's a genetic thing. There's not, if you're one of those people, you just can't. And I know, because I have chicken legs. Below the kneecap, it's just, for some people, you can be as strong as fast as possible, and there's just not really going to be much, sign of muscle definition and those types of things. But overall, I thought, Hunter kind of looked the part, maybe a little bit more than I anticipated he did. The route running. Now, look, we got into this weird thing with route running, and it goes all the way back. And actually, I'm going to name drop my buddy Jeff Risden. If you all remember years ago at the combine, Braxton Miller just had an absolute red zone route and just crushed somebody, as far as, basically just embarrassed him to the ground. And that's, it's become a thing here. And we see a lot of it certainly down in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. And you certainly saw it a lot with Hunter today. It's just weird because when you're doing these stop and stutters, it looks weird when you're doing it on air. Okay. But it certainly shows, the overall quickness he has. It would certainly look a little bit more impressive if he was juking somebody in that route, so to speak. But maybe overdid it a little bit. But the hands are there, certainly. What we saw today, and I'll continue to say it, he is a wide receiver. He's not going to be a corner in the NFL. Because if the potential is there to be the pass catcher that he could be, and even say at worst, he catches 80-something passes a year. Whatever I think anybody's going to think of him as a cornerback is going to be trumped by the fact that, he'll be a starting wide receiver in the NFL. It's just that simple. Shedeur. I thought Shedeur threw the deep ball well. There was a little wobble, whatever. And for Shedeur, I think, that there was a lot going on here today. You know what I'm saying? This was big, as far as the amount of people were there. You had the New York Giants. They brought everybody, including the guy who cleans the bathrooms, apparently. Certainly the Cleveland Browns had a very, very large contingency of people there as well. So these teams came out, and they came out in full force, certainly. You have two guys. Certainly, you would say the potential is there for these guys to go top 2 in this draft, certainly. Top 10 in this draft. The potential is there for certainly, you had 2 headline guys at a pro day. So that is going to bring out a lot of NFL personnel. Shedeur, cool, calm, relaxed. I just, did a nice job. The keeping of the statistics at a pro day is always so weird. I forget what it was, 62 was 67, whatever, a couple of drops. Look, you're not going to go perfect. It's fine. Who cares about that type of stuff? It's all about how you look. It's the movement. So I thought both guys actually, showed up and showed out well, for the most part. There are some other receivers on that Colorado team other than, of course, just Hunter, of course. Wester Shepard, who's the biggest guy of the bunch and had I think it was a 40-inch vert and a 4.5, 40, a guy that probably should have went to the combine, didn't. Horn is another one. So there was a nice contingency of wide receivers, from Colorado, from this past team that was there today. I thought Shedeur, worked pretty well with them. I think sometimes there was too much there. Like, you see other pro day footage where it's kind of like you're just getting to see, basically the guys, quarterback, receiver, work together. I think that wasn't really necessarily the case today. And, it could have made it a little bit more difficult, certainly. But again, I think the bottom line of it all is that's just Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter both showed well. What does this lead? I'm going to say that it shouldn't change anything. Okay. The combine workouts, the workouts at pro days, they're great. All is good. It shouldn't be anything that's going to make or break anything. It's certainly going to be the tape these guys have. It's going to be the athleticism they have. It's going to be the production they have. All of those things are going to trump a one-day workout in Indianapolis or a one-day pro day workout on your campus. But for as big and as anticipated as this entire thing was for the Colorado Pro Day today, thought it went off pretty well. Certainly you had a little, it was kind of be like, well, if Hunter's not working out, what's going to go on here, because number one, that's obviously Shedeur's most talented guy. So that certainly wasn't, going to work out for Shedeur. And then, Hunter, oh man, come on, please leave us something. But apparently the decision was made yesterday. I don't know how the report came out today. Maybe that's where they got confused. Maybe the whole intention was that Travis Hunter was just going to the throwing part, obviously catch balls for Shedeur, but wasn't actually going to participate in any of the timed agilities, athletic testing, So it's the way it went out. But, for now, this is it, bow on this stuff. We are now going to full-fledged just finish stacking them, stacking groups here and deciding, who are going to be, the best guys to join this Cleveland Browns football team in the 2025 season. We're going to continue on here. And I do have something I'm going to use. And, one thing, guys, look, if I'm bringing you things and you don't necessarily like the point I'm bringing, I'm not pulling stuff out of the air. Most of the time I'm bringing it, and I'm bringing it with factual information. And we're going to do that here in just a bit. So stick around. We've been talking now for a couple of months, and it's been a great partnership here through the draft cycle with the fine folks of State Sharpening Mower Sales and Service in Broadview Heights. If you were local to the Cleveland area, they're your one-stop shop for all things lawn equipment. Listen, you want to spend your Sundays watching the Browns, not cutting your grass. Let the guys at State help you get your weekend back. They specialize in both residential and commercial equipment for Toro, the brand professionals have counted on for more than 100 years. Whether you're looking for a new, dependable, time cutter zero turn, genuine Toro replacement parts, or expert service from our experienced technicians who keep your mower in peak condition, State has got your back. Veteran owned. The Kane family are lifetime Clevelanders. They are lifetime Browns fans and proud supporters of us here at the OBR. Again, if you are local to Cleveland, State Sharpening Mower Sales and Service in Broadview Heights is your hometown team for all your lawn equipment needs. All their info is at statesharp.com. That is STATESHARP.com. Now, Browns 3D, certainly brought to you by the OBR, your host, Jeff Floyd. We are certainly talking Colorado Pro Day today. Basically, the exclamation point on all the working out of the athletes during this 2025 draft cycle. Combine, Pro Days, all pretty much in a tight bow here now. Now, finish up some meetings, something for you Ohio folks. Quinshon Judkins will be coming in on a top 30 visit to the Cleveland Browns. Also, Texas A&M pass rusher Nick Scorton will also be coming in on a top 30 visit to Cleveland. So just some of the things that are going to go on here within the next, 20 days between now and April 24th when we kick all of this off. Now, we've been talking certainly, and, I get into this and then people ask me questions and then I give you my reasoning why I'm either pro something or con something. And then I just kind of get bashed left and right all over it. It's kind of, I try to be active and, I try to, listen and talk and all of that type of stuff. And then, but the reason I'm giving people sometimes is, that there's information behind it. I mean, as far as, and, I got into this a little bit yesterday and I got into it last night. The Cleveland Browns are at number 2, obviously. That's the selection they hold. It could come down very well to either a wide receiver or it could come down very well to a defensive end. Look, the Travis Hunter thing, the fact that he was a dual threat in college is going to mean nothing in this scenario right now. Nobody's going to say, oh, well, he's going to do this and he can do some of that. No, 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 no. You're going to draft him. And if you listened, Steve Smith talked about this today. You just put him at receiver, and there is no more corner talk. And this way, the stuff that he still may be rough around the edges with, as far as a wide receiver, you hope that's going to improve, because this is all he is going to do now. He is going to be a one-side of the ball player. So it will give him the opportunity to hopefully fix and improve maybe any deficiencies that are in his game. But my other big point here is when we're talking, and again, for me, and if you look at it from the analytic approach, if you're saying it's pick 2 and say you were tied on the players and you had Hunter and you had Abdul Carter viewed exactly the same way. For the Browns, in an analytic regime, my expectation is they're going to pick the defensive end. The defensive end would be the more important position, in my opinion, under an analytic model over wide receiver. Now, wide receivers, and what we have here is wide receivers drafted in the top 10 from 2000 to 2023. So this is including last year's guys, and obviously it was a good group last year. Okay. 2000 to 2023 wide receivers that were drafted number 2 overall. Calvin Johnson, Hall of Famer, one of the greatest wide receivers to ever play this game, 6'5", 240, ran sub 4.4. You all know the rest. Ironically enough, the other one to be drafted number 2 overall is also by the Detroit Lions, Charles Rogers. Charles Rogers had a little game, had 2 touchdowns in his first NFL game, and then basically his life just fell apart on the field. But both these guys were plus in size, had great tape, athleticism, all of these things. Wide receivers got number 3 overall. Andre Johnson, Larry Fitzgerald, Browns fans should know this, Braylon Edwards. Wide receivers who have gone at number 4 in the top 10. Amari Cooper, Sammy Watkins, A.J. Green, Peter Warrick. Peter Warrick, injuries. A.J. Green was a beast. Sammy Watkins started strong, fell off the map. Amari Cooper wasn't a bad career, obviously. You know, Browns got to see some of the best of Amari Cooper. Wide receivers who were drafted number 5 overall. Jamar Chase, Corey Davis, Justin Blackman. Blackman a mess. Davis was definitely overdrafted. Jamar Chase, I think if you had to say right now, Hall of Fame career. So my point here is the expectation is extremely high. Okay? So just to say, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'd say A.J. Green was borderline. So of those wide receivers who were either drafted 2nd overall, 3rd overall, or 4th overall, I'd say legitimately the expectation is that hopefully you're getting a Hall of Fame player. If people aren't ready to believe that, this is, I think, the gripe that we're having, okay? And again, you bring in Travis Hunter at number 2 overall. Jerry Jeudy's stats last year, you're expecting Travis Hunter to walk in the door and be better than that right away, day 1. Be better than that. If you were to draft a defensive end at number 2 overall, and you said at the end of his first 5 years, of his rookie contract, he had between 40 and 50 sacks, you would say that was a good run. You would say that was a good run. So this is really a lot of expectation if you were going to draft a wide receiver this high. And unlike most of the other receivers on this list that I've been talking about, there are some holes in the resume of Travis Hunter. Of the elite of this group, he doesn't have the size that these guys had. Not even close. Most of these guys have them by 2 inches. Arm length, have them. Hand size, have them. Speed, we don't know. And look, you guys can say whatever you want. If Travis Hunter could run a 4.3 40, Travis Hunter would have run a 40. That is kind of what my bone of contention is. Usually when guys do not test, it's because they know they will not test well. If you guys don't want to use that as a way you are going to view, grade, player, etc., there's nothing I can do about it. It's an unknown for me, which makes it very difficult for me to then put that player. I can't, and it's something that Beaton Smith and I have done. We've used this one for years, and it goes back to the movie A Few Good Men. It doesn't matter what I think, it matters what I can prove. So if you don't do, and this applies to everyone, and look, Carter's got athletic testing numbers from a year ago in the spring. That's something. I don't have this on Hunter. At least I have something on Carter. It's not about what I know. It's about what I can prove. And for Hunter, his athleticism is a mystery. And you want to know what? Even if he jumped to 40 and you said, 39 and a half. With one test, you can kind of get some calculations. I think he's a guy who's probably quicker than he is fast, which is fine. And, there is a role, and Travis Hunter is going to be a fantastic, fantastic player in the NFL. Is he going to be a Calvin Johnson, an Andre Johnson, a Larry Fitzgerald type performer in the NFL? No, I can't see that. I don't believe it. But if I'm drafting a wide receiver at number 2 overall, looking through the history of the wide receiver position drafted that high since the year 2000, that's the expectation. The expectation is that you are getting a Calvin Johnson, an Andre Johnson, a Larry Fitzgerald. That's the legitimacy. That is what you were thinking this guy can be. And I'll be fair. It's probably hard to look at any kid coming out of college, going into the NFL, and saying, yeah, maybe a Calvin Johnson, maybe a Larry Fitzgerald, they can be an Andre Johnson. It's really, really difficult, obviously, to bestow that upon any young man coming into the NFL. That's fair. But drafting him at number 2 overall, that is legitimately the expectation of what you think he can be. And it's probably unfair to put on anybody. It is. I don't like when people comp people like that. Put such a comp on it that it almost feels like you're crushing the kid and crushing the possibility, of what the kid could be one day. I just, and without having the quarterback, that's the other thing that kills me. And I got into this yesterday, and some people asked me about Jerry Jeudy. Is he 1? Is he 2? I think he's a 1A. Travis Hunter 2, 1A, whatever. Same type of thing. So I don't know necessarily that they are the perfect pairing, and that's where it got into this. And where I said Jerry Jeudy would have been drafted higher, should have been drafted higher than where Travis Hunter will be drafted. No offense, I still believe it. And maybe you just don't remember Jerry Jeudy at Alabama. Jerry Jeudy was an absolute dude at Alabama. He did some athletic testing. It wasn't great, but he did some. Big, huge thing, obviously, to at least have something. Ran a 4.45, certainly bigger than Travis Hunter was more built out, all of that stuff, didn't jump well. But again, you can't use one, just because Hunter didn't do it means you don't get a pass for that. You get a negative for not doing athletic testing. Now, do I think the Browns are steadfast at staying at 2 and taking either a Hunter or a Carter? I think the Browns would love to have an opportunity to move down, even if it was 1 pick or 2 picks, and entertain the idea of getting more picks. And if you told me they were okay with moving out of 2, going to 3, moving out of 2, going to 4, with the understanding and the acceptance of they would walk out of it with Hunter or Carter and more picks, with the ability to move back up and get a young quarterback, I definitely think that is the route they would go. no question. We know how much certainly the Browns love their draft capital. Having current picks, future picks, it is obviously a staple of what Andrew Berry has always done. If that's the tendency you have, in day 2 and day 3, certainly it's a tendency you probably have in day 1 as well. There was something else out there that was, I forget who it was, and it was, about the lack of skill drafted by the Browns. Well, yeah, I understand. Yeah, but some of that also has to do with the fact that you traded for a wide receiver 3 years in a row, because you traded for Cooper, then you traded for Elijah Moore, then you traded for Jerry Jeudy. Yes, the Browns have not spent a lot of draft capital on skill players. The Browns absolutely need a ton of skill players. I've been telling you this for months. And if you even heard Nathan Zagar was on with Ken Carman today, and Nathan basically told you the same thing I've been saying now for weeks, listing the needs for the offensive skill rooms for the Cleveland Browns. There's a lot. I still see, because the thing is, and I see so many of you guys putting out your Browns mock drafts, and I love looking at them. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I do. I'm always looking for different ways for this to work, but I see very little to any help coming on the defensive sides of the ball. Now, I am not going to lie to you, and I'm not going to ignore the fact about how poor the offense was last year. Not going to lie. And yes, they need a ton of help. And I'm going to be completely honest with you, there is no way they're getting all the help they need this year. There is no way they are getting that entire offense right this year. I am sorry. There's just too much that needs to be done. I thought there was personally going to be a little bit more activity in free agency in addressing some of the needs on the offensive side of the ball. Unless something big happens here in the next 20 days, I'm not changing off that stance. I just don't know how you're finishing this offense in this one offseason when now pretty much all you have left is the draft. Just don't see how it's going to happen. But I got to throw the defense something. I do. And you look, Myles Garrett, it's all taken care of. It's back to, he's back, all good, But the other 4 DNs, not named Myles Garrett, combined for 10 total sacks in the NFL last year. That's it, 10. So if you're telling me that you don't think there's still a glaring need for a ridiculously good athlete who's only played 16 games as an edge, was an absolute monster in the Big Ten, played 16 games, played essentially with one arm against Notre Dame, was the best defensive athlete on the field in that game. This is it. Just give me Carter. And whatever other picks you've got, offense. 2026, come right back, spend the offense. Because I think, and this is where I kind of disagree with Nathan, because they were talking about, the defense being a top 15 defense now. I disagree with that. You get me Carter, I'm going to say that I'm going to take it that I think that's less than what Nathan was saying. But you give me Carter, I think the potential is there that they are top 10, if not better. That is what I believe in my heart. So, starting to close it out here, the Colorado Pro Day. I think Hunter and Sanders, everything, for them probably went about as well as expected. Certainly a lot of NFL brass wanted to be there for this. Somehow, some way, a lot of Cleveland media was able to find a way on a Friday to sneak on out to Boulder, Colorado, and witness this. And certainly a different kind of a flavor for a pro day, and that's kind of maybe what happens when you have 2 guys that are so highly thought of in the same draft, and certainly where they're they work in unison as a quarterback and as a wide receiver. Hunter did not do anything as a defensive back today. And I'm going to say again, I think the Hunter defensive back talk is over. I think he's truly going to be an offensive player. And, maybe every now and then he'll get a look-see on D in a weird spot or a weird situation. But, he is going to be an NFL wide receiver, and he's going to be a pretty damn good one. I'm just not sure necessarily that it's going to be, unfortunately for most of you, with the Cleveland Browns. Again, we appreciate everybody for all the support here with the show over the last, few weeks, few months, as you were able to really give you a full, run of draft coverage here. Still got 3 weeks to go. Starting to get more specific here in the weeks to come. quarterback, quarterbacks ranked, running backs, wide receivers, defensive side of the ball as well. Trying to find, some mock drafts here, trying to find your absolute Cleveland Browns best fits. This is kind of where we are at, and what we're doing here is we're getting closing out, but only less than 3 weeks away now from the 2025 NFL draft. And pretty much everything is done. Let's just have some more chatter, and everybody's going to buckle on up for April 24th, of course. This has been Browns 3D on the OBR, brought to you by State Sharpening Mower Sales and Service. We appreciate everybody, again, for all the support. Make sure you subscribe, of course, over on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe over on Twitch. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. Browns 3D, and we'll see y'all next week.